Kira had never missed a target in 10 years. Not once. Not a single failure in her entire career as an assassin. She sat alone in the darkness of her small ship, the only light coming from the holographic display floating in the air in front of her. The image rotated slowly, showing every angle of her next target, a human male, somewhere in his mid-30s, from the look of him, brown hair that was slightly messy, like he ran his hands through it when he was thinking, glasses perched on his nose, and eyes that looked kind, even in a static photograph. Dr. Nathan Brooks, scientist, researcher, and according to the contract file open on her data pad, a man who needed to die within the next 2 weeks. The payment was substantial. 5 million credits transferred to her anonymous account upon confirmation of death. Kira had been doing this work long enough to know that kind of money meant something important. You did not pay 5 million credits to eliminate some random nobody. This target mattered to someone, mattered enough to spend serious money, making sure he disappeared permanently. She pulled up the full mission briefing on her datapad, scrolling through the sparse information her handler had provided. Nathan Brooks was currently working at a remote research facility on a colony world called Haven's Edge. The planet was on the outer rim, far from any major shipping lanes or military installations. Isolated, perfect for secret research projects, perfect for making someone disappear without questions being asked. The briefing did not say what kind of medical technology Nathan was developing. The details were deliberately vague, which was not unusual in Kira's line of work. Clients rarely wanted assassins knowing too much about why someone needed to die, but the instructions were crystal clear and simple. Eliminate the target. Make it look like an accident if possible. Leave absolutely no trace that could connect back to the client. Simple, clean, professional. Exactly the kind of work Kira specialized in and had built her reputation on. She was not human herself, though she could pass for one at a distance if she wore the right clothing. Kira belonged to a species called the Vren. Most humans had probably never even heard of her people. The Vren kept to themselves mostly, living on worlds far from human space. But throughout the criminal underworld and intelligence communities across the galaxy, the Vren were known for very specific traits. They were fast. Faster reflexes than almost any other species in known space. Their reaction times were measured in fractions of seconds that other races could not match. And despite having a slender, almost delicate-looking build, the Vren were incredibly strong. Pound for pound, they could overpower species twice their size. But the trait that made Vren particularly valuable as assassins was something even more unique. They could control their body temperature at will, lower it to match their surroundings perfectly. This made them nearly invisible to thermal scanners, motion detectors, and most security systems that relied on detecting warm-blooded intruders. To sensors and cameras, a Vren assassin with lowered body temperature looked like just another cold rock or piece of metal, completely harmless, completely invisible. Perfect traits for someone in Kira's profession. She had been doing this work since she was 16 years old. Before that, her life had been very different. She tried not to think about those early years too much, about the family that had abandoned her when she was just a child, about the years spent surviving on the streets of a dozen different worlds, stealing food, hiding from security forces, doing whatever it took to stay alive one more day. Then someone had noticed her, recognized that the skills she had developed to survive, the speed, the stealth, the ability to read people and situations, could be refined and weaponized. They had taken her off the streets, trained her properly, taught her how to kill efficiently and without emotion, shaped her from a desperate street kid into a precision weapon. Now, 10 years later at age 26, Kira was the best in the business. Governments hired her for jobs they could not officially acknowledge. Corporations paid premium rates for her services when competitors needed to be permanently removed. Even criminal organizations feared her reputation, knowing that crossing certain lines might put them on her target list. She felt nothing when she worked. No guilt about the lives she ended. No hesitation when pulling the trigger or sliding the blade between ribs. Targets were not people to her. They were just targets. Problems that someone was paying her to solve. obstacles that needed to be removed so the galaxy could keep turning. Nathan Brooks would be no different from the dozens who had come before him. Just another name, another face, another body that would be discovered too late for anyone to save. Kira closed a holographic display with a gesture and powered up her ship's navigation systems. She entered the coordinates for Haven's Edge into the computer. The system calculated the journey would take approximately 3 days at standard cruising speed. She could push the engines and make it in 2, but there was no rush. The contract gave her 2 weeks. Better to arrive rested and prepared. She spent those 3 days in transit exactly the way she always did before a job, researching, learning everything possible about her target. Nathan's daily routines, his eating habits, his sleep schedule, where he went, who he talked to, every scrap of information that might prove useful when the moment came to strike. The information she gathered painted a picture of a lonely man. Nathan lived alone at the research facility. No family listed in any database she could access. No close friends nearby based on communication records. He worked incredibly long hours, often through the entire night, according to facility power consumption logs. Some nights he apparently never left his lab at all, working straight through until dawn. Security at the facility was minimal, just basic automated systems. A few cameras at the entrances, motion sensors around the perimeter. Nothing that would pose any real challenge to someone with Kira's training and abilities. No armed guards. No military presence. Haven's Edge was a peaceful colony world where violent crime was almost non-existent. Nobody expected assassins. It would be easy, perhaps too easy, which made Kira slightly suspicious. In her experience, contracts that seemed too simple often had hidden complications, but she could find nothing in her research to suggest any surprises. Nathan was exactly what he appeared to be, a dedicated scientist working alone on some medical research project. Unguarded, isolated, vulnerable. 3 days after leaving her previous location, Kira's ship entered Haven's Edge orbit. She did not approach the main spaceport where her arrival would be logged and recorded. Instead, she brought her ship down in a remote valley approximately 5 miles from Nathan's research facility. The valley was surrounded by hills covered in dense vegetation that would hide her landing from any casual observers. She waited until full darkness before leaving her ship. Then Kira began the approach on foot, moving silently through the alien forest. She concentrated, lowering her body temperature to match the cool night air around her. To any thermal scanner, she would be completely invisible now. Just another patch of cold darkness in a dark forest. The research facility came into view after about an hour of careful movement. It was small, much smaller than Kira had expected. Just 3 modest buildings clustered together in a cleared area. The main laboratory was the largest structure, a 2-story building with large windows on the upper floor. The other 2 buildings appeared to be living quarters and storage. Lights were on in the main lab despite the late hour. Through one of the large windows on the 2nd floor, Kira could see Nathan working at a computer terminal. His face was illuminated by the blue glow of multiple screens surrounding him. Even from this distance, she could see the intense concentration on his features. Kira found a good observation position on a nearby hill. From here, she had a clear view of the entire facility and all 3 buildings. She could watch the front entrance, the side doors, and most of the windows. Perfect spot to learn Nathan's movements and plan her approach. She settled into the position comfortably, prepared to wait for however long necessary. Patience was everything in this work. Patience was what separated true professionals from amateurs who rushed in and made mistakes. Kira had learned long ago that the key to a successful elimination was observation. Watch, learn, wait for the perfect moment, then strike with absolute certainty. 3 days, she thought to herself as she watched Nathan through the window. Maybe 4 at most. She would observe his routines, find a moment when he was most vulnerable. Then Nathan Brooks would have a tragic accident, a fall perhaps, or exposure to some chemical in his own lab, something believable that would not raise suspicions. Then she would collect her 5 million credits and move on to the next contract. Simple, clean, professional. It should have been simple. For days passed while Kira watched from her hiding spot on the hill. Then 5 days. Then 6. Then a full week. She watched Nathan constantly through her long-range scanner, tracking his every movement and habit. And something strange was happening. Something that had never happened before in her entire 10 years of killing people for money. She was hesitating. At first, Kira told herself she was just being thorough, professional, learning every single detail about the target before making her move, waiting for the absolute perfect moment when success would be guaranteed and risk would be minimal. That was just good practice. Smart tactics. But deep down, in a part of herself she usually kept locked away and ignored, Kira knew that was a lie. The truth was much more complicated and disturbing. The truth was that Nathan Brooks was not at all what she had expected. He worked incredibly long hours in that laboratory. 18, sometimes 20 hours straight without stopping. Kira watched him through the windows day after day, seeing him hunched over computers and lab equipment, completely absorbed in his work. He barely slept more than 4 or 5 hours a night. Often he would fall asleep right at his desk, waking up a few hours later and immediately going back to work. But he was not developing weapons, not creating military technology, or designing new ways to kill people more efficiently like so many of Kira's previous targets had been doing. Through her long-range scanner, which could pick up data transmissions and computer screens from a distance, Kira had been able to access fragments of Nathan's research files. He was working on a cure, a medical cure for something called Kelton's Plague. Kira had heard of Kelton's Plague. Most people in the galaxy had by now. It was a terrible disease that had appeared about 3 years ago in the outer colonies. Nobody knew where it came from originally. Some said it was a mutation of an existing virus. Others claimed it was engineered as a weapon that had escaped containment. Whatever its origin, Kelton's Plague was devastating. It attacked the nervous system of several different alien species, mostly children for reasons nobody understood. The disease caused terrible, unimaginable pain as it slowly destroyed nerve tissue throughout the body. Victims could not walk, could not eat properly, could barely sleep because of the constant agony, and death was inevitable, usually within 6 months of the first symptoms appearing, sometimes faster, never slower. The plague had spread across 3 different star systems now. Tens of thousands of children were infected. Their families could do nothing but watch them suffer and slowly die. Pharmaceutical companies had tried to develop treatments. Governments had thrown enormous amounts of money at research teams. The best medical minds in the galaxy had worked on the problem. Nothing had worked. Every attempted cure had failed. Every treatment only delayed the inevitable by a few weeks at most. But Nathan was close to something. Kira could see it in the way he worked. She watched him run experiments, saw the excitement in his body language when results looked promising, saw the way his movements became quick and energetic when data suggested he was on the right track. She also saw the devastation on his face when experiments failed, watched him slump in his chair, head in his hands, looking absolutely defeated, then saw him take a deep breath, straighten his shoulders, and start over with a new approach. He cared, genuinely, deeply cared about saving those dying children he had never met and would probably never meet. The walls of his laboratory were covered with photographs. Kira had used her scanner to zoom in and look at them closely. Pictures of children, alien children from different species. Some were smiling despite being in hospital beds. Some were unconscious, covered in medical equipment. Some were clearly in the final stages of the disease, their small bodies wasted and broken. Nathan looked at those photographs constantly while he worked, reminded himself why the long hours mattered, why he could not give up no matter how many times his experiments failed. On the 7th day of observation, Kira made a mistake, a stupid, careless mistake that a professional assassin should never make. She had moved to a new observation point, trying to get a better angle to see into a different section of the laboratory. The new position required climbing partway down the hillside, moving through loose rocks and gravel. Her foot slipped, just slightly, just enough to dislodge a few small stones that tumbled down the slope. The sound was tiny, barely audible, just a soft rattling of pebbles rolling downhill. Most people would not have noticed it at all over the ambient sounds of the forest at night. But Nathan's head snapped up immediately. He looked away from his computer screens toward the window. His eyes scanned the darkness outside, searching for the source of sound. He looked directly at Kira's hiding spot. Kira froze completely, every muscle locked in place. She concentrated hard, lowering her body temperature even further to match the cold rocks around her. To any thermal scanner or sensor, she would be completely invisible, just another part of the landscape. But Nathan was not looking at a scanner. He was looking with his own eyes, guided by instinct and concern. He stood up from his desk and walked toward the door. Kira watched through her scope, silently cursing her carelessness. She could still disappear, melt back into the forest darkness, and return tomorrow when he had forgotten about the strange noise. That would be the smart play, the professional choice. But something made her hesitate, some curiosity about what he would do next. Nathan opened the door and stepped outside into the cool night air. He looked around carefully, his eyes searching the hillside where Kira was hidden. "Hello!" he called out into the darkness. His voice was calm, not aggressive or suspicious. "Is someone there? Do you need help?" The question surprised Kira. He had heard a noise in the dark outside his isolated research facility. His first assumption was not that someone was spying on him or trying to break in. His first thought was that someone might need help. Nathan took a few steps away from the building, still looking around with genuine concern visible on his face even in the dim light. "If you're lost, I can help you," he said to the darkness. "This area is not very safe at night. There are predators in the forest, large ones. You should not be out here alone." He thought she was a lost traveler, someone whose ship had crashed or who had wandered away from the main settlement and gotten turned around in the wilderness. Not a threat, not someone dangerous, just a person who needed assistance. Kira cursed silently again. She could still leave, should leave, vanish into the night, and let Nathan go back inside thinking he had imagined the noise, resume her observation tomorrow, and complete the contract as planned. But against every professional instinct she had developed over 10 years of killing, against all her training and experience, Kira made a choice that surprised even herself. She stood up from her hiding spot and stepped into the open where Nathan could see her clearly. Nathan's eyes widened slightly as he took in her appearance. The pale blue skin that marked her as Vren, the silver eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, the slim, almost delicate-looking build that humans often mistook for weakness until it was too late. Most humans who encountered Vren showed some fear, or at least caution. The Vren had a reputation throughout the galaxy for being dangerous, cold, emotionless, untrustworthy. Most people kept their distance when they recognized one, but Nathan just looked relieved to see another person. "Oh," he said, his expression softening with understanding. "You're Vren. Are you hurt? Are you lost out here?" His first questions were about her well-being, not about why she was lurking in the dark outside his isolated facility. "My ship had mechanical trouble," Kira lied, the words coming smoothly and naturally. "I landed in a valley about 5 miles from here. I was looking for shelter while I repair it." It was a terrible lie, completely stupid and reckless. Any reasonable person would ask why she had not used her ship's communication system to call for help, why she had not stayed with her ship where she would have food and shelter, why she was wandering around in the dark instead of waiting until daylight. But Nathan bought the lie immediately without question. "Come inside," he said, already turning back toward the facility. "It's cold out here tonight. I have food and a spare room you can use. You can stay as long as you need while you repair your ship." He was inviting her in, offering her food and shelter without hesitation, opening his home to a complete stranger from a species most humans feared. Kira stood there staring at him, completely thrown off balance. In her entire life, she could not remember anyone showing her this kind of casual, automatic kindness. Nathan looked back and smiled warmly at her. The smile reached his eyes, genuine and welcoming. "Come on," he said, gesturing toward the door. "I was just about to make coffee anyway." "Do Vren drink coffee?" "I have tea, too, if you prefer that." 3 days later, Kira was still there at the research facility, still living in the spare room Nathan had offered her, still eating meals with him in the small kitchen area, still listening to him talk enthusiastically about his research and the progress he was making. She kept telling herself she was gathering intelligence, getting close to the target to make the eventual kill easier and cleaner, learning his complete routine so she could strike at the perfect moment with zero risk of failure. That was just smart professional work. Good tactics. But that was another lie. One of many lies Kira had been telling herself since the moment she stepped into Nathan's facility. The truth, the real truth she was desperately trying not to acknowledge, was much simpler and far more dangerous to her career and reputation. She did not want to kill him. Nathan was kind, genuinely, impossibly, almost absurdly kind in a way that Kira had never experienced before in her entire life. He shared his food without any hesitation, never once making her feel like a burden despite the fact that she was eating his supplies. He had given her the better sleeping quarters, the room with a more comfortable bed, and the window with a nice view, while he took the smaller room for himself. When Kira asked questions about his research, Nathan would spend hours explaining the complex science behind what he was doing. His entire face would light up with passion and hope as he talked about protein structures and immune system responses and treatment delivery mechanisms. He used simple language so she could understand, never making her feel stupid for not knowing technical terms. He was patient and enthusiastic, and so completely dedicated to saving lives that it almost hurt to watch him. On the third evening of her stay, Nathan cooked dinner for both of them. He had insisted, saying that Kira was his guest and guests should not have to cook. He made a simple pasta dish with vegetables and some kind of protein that Kira could not identify, but tasted surprisingly good. They sat together at the small table in the kitchen area, eating while Nathan talked about his work. The major breakthrough came last week, Nathan said, his eyes bright with excitement. I finally managed to isolate the specific protein that Kelton's plague uses to attack neural tissue. It took me 8 months of failed experiments, but I found it. He paused to take a bite of food, then continued with the enthusiasm of someone who desperately needed to share good news with another person. If I can develop an inhibitor that blocks that protein, the children's immune system should be able to fight off the plague naturally. Their own bodies will do the work. The cure just needs to give them a chance. Kira watched him as he spoke, noting the hope in his expression, the absolute conviction that he would succeed. How many children are infected right now? She asked. Nathan's expression darkened immediately. The hope faded, replaced by something heavier, sadder. Current estimates are around 40,000 across 3 different star systems, but the number grows every single day. Every week there are more cases reported, more families watching their children suffer. He set down his fork, suddenly looking much more tired. And the pharmaceutical corporations refuse to help. I have reached out to every major medical company in known space, asked for funding, for resources, for any kind of assistance. What do they say? Kira asked, though she was starting to suspect she already knew the answer. They all said the same thing. There is no profit in curing a disease that only affects poor outer rim colonies. The families who need this cure cannot pay premium prices for treatment, so the corporations have zero financial incentive to invest in research. Nathan's voice was bitter now. They would rather let 40,000 children die than spend money on a cure they cannot profit from. There it was, the answer Kira had been looking for, the reason why someone was paying 5 million credits to have Nathan killed. Nathan's cure would be free. He had made that clear in several research notes Kira had seen. Open source, available to everyone who needed it regardless of their ability to pay. He planned to publish all his findings publicly so that any medical facility anywhere could manufacture and distribute the treatment. That meant no profits for the massive pharmaceutical corporations who controlled most medical technology in the galaxy. No patents to exploit. No desperate families forced to pay whatever price was demanded to save their dying children. Nathan was going to give away something that could be worth billions of credits. And certain people wanted him dead before he could succeed. Kira felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest as she sat there looking at Nathan. Something uncomfortable and sharp that made breathing feel slightly difficult. Anger, maybe, or disgust at the kind of people who would kill someone for wanting to save children's lives. She was not entirely sure what the feeling was. She had spent so many years deliberately not feeling anything at all that identifying specific emotions had become difficult. That night, long after dinner was finished and Nathan had gone back to his laboratory to work, Kira's communicator buzzed with an incoming message. She looked at the device, recognizing the encrypted signal from her handler, the person who arranged her contracts and transferred payments. Someone she had never met in person, but had worked with for years. The message was short and direct. Target acquisition overdue. Execute immediately or contract will be reassigned to another operator. Kira stared at those words for a long time. Reassign meant another assassin. Someone else who would be sent to complete the job she had failed to finish. Someone who would not hesitate the way she was hesitating. Someone who would kill Nathan within days of arriving. She sat there in her room holding the communicator, thinking about what she needed to do, what a professional would do, what the Kira from 2 weeks ago would have done, without any second thoughts. Finally, she stood up and checked her weapons. Her plasma blade was fully charged, its energy cell showing maximum capacity. Her neural disruptor was loaded with fresh ammunition. Both weapons were clean, maintained, ready for use. She could do this tonight, while Nathan slept. Wait until he finally collapsed from exhaustion like he did most nights. Enter his room, silently. One quick strike with the plasma blade. He would never know what happened, would not feel any pain, would not have time to be afraid, just like dozens of other targets before him. Quick, clean, professional. R.A. moved silently through the facility toward Nathan's personal quarters. Her feet made absolutely no sound on the floor. Her body temperature was lowered to avoid triggering any sensors or automated systems. She was a perfect predator, the perfect killer. 10 years of training and experience guiding every movement. She reached Nathan's door and found it partially open. A slice of light came through the gap. He was still awake then, still working despite the late hour. Through the opening, Kira could see Nathan sitting at his desk. He looked absolutely exhausted. His shoulders were slumped. His eyes were red from staring at screens for too many hours. Papers were scattered everywhere around him. Multiple monitors displayed complex data and graphs that Kira did not understand. She raised her plasma blade slowly. The weapon hummed softly, almost inaudible. One strike, just one quick movement, and this would all be over. She could collect her payment and move on to the next contract. Forget about Nathan Brooks and his impossible kindness. But then she saw what was on Nathan's desk among all the research papers and data screens. Photographs, dozens of them, the same photos that covered the walls of his laboratory. Alien children in hospital beds. Some were smiling bravely despite obviously being in pain. Some were unconscious, their small bodies connected to medical equipment. Some were clearly in the final stages of Kelton's plague, their bodies wasted and broken. And one photograph that stood out from all the rest. It sat in a small frame right next to Nathan's keyboard where he would see it constantly while working. A human girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. She had the same brown hair as Nathan, the same warm, kind eyes. She was smiling in the photo, a bright, genuine smile full of life and happiness. Kira watched as Nathan picked up that photograph with trembling hands. He held it carefully, like it was the most precious thing in the universe, and tears started rolling down his face as he stared at the image. "I am so close, Katie," Nathan whispered to the photograph. His voice was broken, raw with grief. "So close to finishing this. I promise I will save them. I could not save you, but I will save them. I promise." His daughter. The girl in the photo was his daughter, and she was dead. Kira's hand froze with the plasma blade raised and ready to strike. The weapon suddenly felt impossibly heavy in her grip. Nathan set the photograph down gently, treating it with infinite care. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Then he took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and went back to his work. Back to trying to save children he had never met, because he had failed to save his own. Kira stood there in the doorway for what felt like an eternity. Her entire body was tense and ready, every muscle prepared to strike. The training and instincts from 10 years of killing screaming at her to complete the mission. But she could not move, could not take that final step forward, could not bring the blade down. For the first time in 10 years of being an assassin, Kira could not pull the trigger, could not complete a contract, could not kill her target. Slowly, moving like someone in a dream, Kira lowered her weapon. She stepped backward into the shadows of the hallway, retreated silently to her own room while Nathan continued working, completely unaware of how close to death he had just been. Kira sat down on her bed and stared at her hands. The hands that had killed so many people without hesitation. The hands that had just refused to kill one more. What was happening to her? What was this feeling that made her chest hurt and her thoughts spiral in directions they had never gone before? This strange sensation that felt almost like pain but different, deeper. She looked at her communicator still sitting on the small table, looked at the message demanding she complete the contract immediately. Kira activated the device and typed out a response to her handler. Target eliminated. Evidence disposed of according to standard protocol. Awaiting payment transfer to usual account. It was a lie, a complete fabrication. Nathan was alive and well in the next room, working on his cure, completely unharmed. But she sent the message anyway. Then Kira systematically deleted all the message history from her communicator, erased every trace of communication with her handler, and finally, she took the device outside and destroyed it completely, smashed it into pieces that could never be recovered or traced. Whatever came next, she would face it. Whatever consequences resulted from this decision, she would deal with them, but she would not kill Nathan Brooks. She could not. Something had changed in her during these 3 days. Something fundamental that she did not fully understand yet. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Kira who had arrived at this facility planning a murder was gone, and she had no idea who she was becoming instead. 2 days after Kira sent the false report claiming Nathan was dead, everything fell apart completely. She woke up suddenly to the sound of alarms blaring throughout the research facility. Loud, urgent alarms that meant the perimeter security systems had detected something dangerous. Kira was on her feet instantly, years of training taking over before she was even fully awake. She rushed out of her room and found Nathan already up in the main control area, staring at the security monitors with a deeply confused expression on his face. He was still wearing the clothes he had fallen asleep in at his desk a few hours earlier. His hair was messy and his eyes were tired, but he was focused on the screen showing the facility's exterior. "Someone is trying to break through the perimeter defenses," Nathan said without looking away from the monitors. His voice was uncertain, like he could not quite believe what he was seeing. "The system is showing 5 signatures, moving fast toward the facility from the east." Kira felt her blood turn to ice in her veins. 5 signatures, moving fast and deliberately. That was not random intruders or lost travelers. That was a professional team. Her handler had not believed her report, had not trusted her claim that Nathan was dead. And now they had sent a backup team to verify the kill and recover proof. When they arrived and found Nathan very much alive and working in his laboratory, they would complete the contract themselves. They would kill him to fulfill the agreement with whoever had paid 5 million credits for his death. And then they would kill Kira for lying, for betraying the organization, for breaking the most fundamental rule of her profession, which was that you always completed the contract or you died trying. "Nathan, listen to me very carefully," Kira said, her voice sharp and urgent. She grabbed his arm and forced him to look at her instead of the monitors. "Those are not random intruders. They are not thieves or vandals. They are assassins, professional killers sent specifically to kill you." Nathan turned to stare at her. The confusion on his face deepened, mixed now with the first hints of real fear. "What? Why would anyone want to kill me? I am just a researcher. I have not done anything to anyone." "Your cure," Kira said flatly. "The cure you are developing for Kelton's plague. The pharmaceutical corporations want you dead before you can finish it and release it for free. They hired me 3 weeks ago." She met his eyes directly, not flinching from the truth. "I was sent here to kill you. That is why I came to this facility. Not because my ship had mechanical problems. I am an assassin, Nathan, and my contract was to eliminate you." The color drained completely from Nathan's face. All the blood just disappeared, leaving him looking pale and shocked. He took a step backward, pulling his arm free from her grip. His eyes were wide with betrayal and fear. "You are an assassin?" His voice came out as barely a whisper. "You have been planning to kill me this whole time?" "Yes, but I did not complete the contract. I could not do it." Kira moved toward him urgently, knowing they were running out of time. "I sent a false report to my handler, saying you were dead, but they did not believe me. They sent those 5 people to verify the kill and recover evidence." She pointed at the security monitors showing the approaching signatures getting closer with every passing second. "And now we need to get you out of here immediately. We need to run before they arrive. I do not understand any of this." Nathan was shaking his head, still trying to process everything. "Why did you not kill me? You had dozens of chances. I was completely defenseless." "Because you are trying to save children." The words exploded out of Kira with unexpected force and emotion. She could hear her own voice cracking slightly. "Because you are good and kind and decent. Because you care about people you have never met. Because a galaxy desperately needs people like you and has too many people like me already." The alarms got even louder, more urgent. The security system was now showing the 5 signatures had reached the outer fence and were systematically destroying the sensors to create a blind spot. Nathan looked absolutely torn. Fear and confusion were clear on his face. But then something shifted in his expression. His eyes hardened with the same determination Kira had seen when he worked through the night on his research. "The Cure data," Nathan said suddenly. He turned away from Kira and started moving toward his main computer terminal. "I need to transmit it before we leave this facility. If they kill me, someone else needs to be able to finish the work. All my research, all my progress. It cannot die with me." "Nathan, there is no time for that." Kira grabbed his arm again, trying to pull him toward the exit. "We need to leave right now." "Then make time." Nathan pulled free and sat down at his computer, his fingers already flying across the keyboard. "Those children are dying. 40,000 children are suffering right now while we stand here talking. That matters more than my life. That matters more than anything." Kira wanted to argue, wanted to physically drag him out of the facility and into the forest where they might have a chance to hide and escape. But she looked at his face and saw the absolute conviction there, the complete unwillingness to compromise on this point. He would not leave without securing that research data, would probably fight her if she tried to force him. And fighting would waste precious seconds they did not have. "How long?" Kira demanded. "How long will the transmission take?" Nathan was already working, his fingers moving at incredible speed across multiple keyboards and touchscreens. 2 minutes to properly package all the data files. Make sure nothing is corrupted or incomplete. Then 3 more minutes to transmit everything to multiple backup locations across different star systems. He did not look away from his screens. 5 minutes total. Maybe 4 if the connections are good. 5 minutes. Kira looked down at her weapons, her plasma blade hanging at her belt, her neural disruptor in its holster. She looked at the security monitors showing 5 professional assassins systematically approaching the facility. 5 trained killers against 1. Terrible odds by any calculation. Possibly the worst odds she had ever faced. But she could give Nathan 5 minutes. She had to give him 5 minutes. "Stay here in this room," Kira ordered, pulling out both her weapons and checking their charge levels. Both were fully ready. "Work as fast as you possibly can. Do not stop for anything. Do not try to help me. Just finish the transmission. Kira, you cannot fight 5 assassins by yourself." Nathan looked up from his computer, genuine concern in his eyes despite everything he had just learned. "That is suicide. We should both run while we still can." She looked back at him one final time. This human scientist who had shown her kindness when he should have been suspicious, who had offered her shelter and food when he could have turned her away, who cared more about saving dying children than his own survival. "Watch me," Kira said simply. Then she turned and walked toward the facility's main entrance where the assassins would be coming through any moment now. Her weapons were ready. Her body was prepared. Her mind was calm and focused the way it always was before a fight. She had been an assassin for 10 years, had killed more people than she could remember, had survived situations that should have been impossible. But she had always fought for money, for contracts, for clients who paid well. This was the first time in her entire life she would be fighting for something else, for someone who mattered, for something that actually meant something beyond credits transferred to an anonymous account. Kira reached the entrance and took up a defensive position where she could see anyone approaching. She lowered her body temperature slightly, making herself harder to detect on thermal scanners. Her breathing slowed and steadied. Behind her, she could hear Nathan working frantically at his computer, the sound of keyboards clicking rapidly, the soft hum of data being compressed and transmitted across vast distances of space. For minutes and 30 seconds left. Through the windows, Kira saw shadows moving in the darkness outside. 5 figures approaching in a professional tactical formation. They were being careful, checking corners and potential ambush points. For minutes left, the lead figure reached the door. Kira could see them clearly now through the reinforced glass. A tall, armored figure, carrying military-grade weapons. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal, and Kira attacked.
Kira positioned herself directly in the facility's entrance, blocking the doorway with her body. She stood perfectly still, weapons ready, watching as 5 figures emerged from the darkness and approached in a tight tactical formation. 5 assassins. She recognized all their species immediately from years of working in the same profession. 2 were Krell warriors, massive beings known throughout the galaxy for their incredible brute strength and nearly indestructible armor plating. 1 was a Sylth infiltrator, masters of stealth who could turn completely invisible and move without making any sound. And 2 were humans wearing top-of-the-line military-grade combat armor that probably cost more than most people earned in a year. This was a professional team. Extremely expensive. The kind of backup you only sent when you absolutely needed a target eliminated and could not afford any possibility of failure. Clearly her handler was not taking any chances anymore. They knew something had gone wrong with her contract, and they were making sure Nathan died tonight no matter what. The lead Krell stepped forward, his massive frame blocking most of the doorway, even from several feet away. He was huge, easily 7 feet tall, and built like a walking tank. His armor was scarred from dozens of previous battles. "Step aside, Vren," the Krell said. His voice was deep and rough, like gravel being ground together. "Our contract is with the human scientist inside. Not with you. This does not have to involve you." "The contract is cancelled," Kira said calmly, not moving from her position. "Turn around and walk away while you still can." The Krell laughed. It was an ugly sound like stone grinding against stone. The other 4 assassins spread out slightly, forming a semicircle around the entrance. "We were told you might have gone soft," the Krell continued, genuine amusement in his voice. Did not want to believe it at first. The great Kira, the galaxy's deadliest assassin, actually protecting a target instead of killing him. He cracked his knuckles, the sound like small bones breaking. How incredibly disappointing. Kira adjusted her grip on her weapon slightly. Her plasma blade hummed with barely contained energy. Her neural disruptor was fully charged and ready. "Last chance," she warned, her voice still completely calm. "Leave now or die here. Those are your only 2 options." The Krell stopped laughing. His expression hardened into something cold and professional. "Kill her," he ordered the others. "Then complete the primary contract." They attacked as a coordinated unit. Professional. Precise. Moving together like they had trained extensively as a team. Exactly how Kira herself would have approached this kind of assault. The Sylth went invisible immediately, his body fading from sight as he activated his species' natural camouflage abilities. He would be trying to flank her, come at her from an unexpected angle while she was distracted by the others. The 2 humans opened fire with their plasma rifles, sending bolts of superheated energy screaming toward Kira's position. They were aiming for center mass, trying to overwhelm her defenses with volume of fire. Both Krell charged straight ahead like living battering rams, using their massive bodies and heavy armor as weapons themselves. But Kira moved. She was faster than any of them. Faster than the humans in their bulky armor. Faster than the Krell despite their powerful legs. The Vren were built for speed, and her 10 years as an assassin had honed that natural ability to perfection. Her plasma blade flashed in the darkness, moving in precise arcs that deflected the incoming plasma bolts. The superheated energy ricocheted off her blade and flew back toward the shooters. One bolt caught the first human directly in the chest. His armor held, but the impact knocked him backward. He went down screaming, the wind knocked out of him. The second human dove for cover behind a piece of equipment, momentarily out of the fight. The first Krell reached Kira, his massive fist coming down like a sledgehammer. She rolled aside at the last possible second. His fist hit the floor where she had been standing and actually cratered the reinforced metal, leaving a dent 6 inches deep. Before he could recover, Kira's blade found the gap in his armor at the back of the knee where the plates did not quite meet. She drove the weapon deep. The Krell roared in pain, and his leg gave out completely. He collapsed to one knee, temporarily out of the fight. The Sylph materialized directly behind Kira, his own blade aimed perfectly at her spine. He had moved silently, invisibly, waiting for the exact right moment to strike. But Kira had been expecting exactly this. She had fought Sylph assassins before and knew their tactics. She spun faster than the eye could follow, her neural disruptor already raised and firing. The weapon discharged directly into the Sylph's chest at point-blank range. The Sylph did not even have time to scream. His nervous system overloaded instantly from the neural disruption. He dropped to the ground, his body convulsing uncontrollably as his brain tried and failed to send signals to his muscles.
3 down.
2 still active and dangerous. But Kira was already bleeding from a dozen small cuts and burns. The second human had managed to graze her with plasma fire while she was dealing with the others. Her left arm was burned and the pain was intense, though she pushed it aside through years of training. The remaining Krell was circling her now, moving more cautiously than his partner had. He had seen how fast she was and was not going to make the mistake of charging blindly. He was waiting for an opening, for her to make a mistake. Inside the facility behind her, Kira could hear Nathan working frantically at his computer. The rapid clicking of keys. The soft beeps of data being transmitted. How much time had passed? A minute? Maybe 90 seconds? She needed to hold them off for at least another minute or two. The Krell and the remaining human attacked together in a perfectly coordinated assault. The human came out from cover, firing plasma bolts from Kira's left side. The Krell charged from the right, his massive fists ready to crush anything in their path. Kira could not block everything. Could not be in 2 places at once. She had to make a choice. She focused on deflecting the Krell's attack, knowing his physical strength was the greater immediate threat. But that left her exposed to the human's plasma fire. A bolt caught her in the left shoulder. The pain was incredible, like being hit with a red-hot iron bar. Her entire arm went completely numb. The plasma blade dropped from her suddenly useless grip and clattered to the floor. Before she could recover, the Krell's fist caught her directly in the ribs. She heard something crack inside her chest. Multiple ribs breaking from the impact. Kira flew backward from the force of the blow, her body hitting the wall hard enough to actually leave a dent in the reinforced metal. Her vision went blurry from the pain. Everything swam in and out of focus. She could taste blood in her mouth. Through her blurred vision, she saw both remaining assassins advancing on her. Saw the Krell raising a heavy plasma cannon toward the facility entrance. Toward the room where Nathan was working. They were done wasting time with her. They were going to kill Nathan while she was down.
No.
Absolutely not. Kira forced her body to move despite the screaming agony. Every muscle protested. Every nerve was on fire. But she pushed through it all and launched herself forward in a desperate tackle. She hit the Krell around his massive legs, using every bit of her remaining strength. They went down together in a tangled heap of limbs and armor. Her right hand, her only working hand now, found the backup knife she kept at her belt. A simple blade, not powered or enhanced, just sharp steel. She drove it upward with everything she had left, finding the gap in the Krell's armor at his throat. The blade went deep. The Krell made a horrible gurgling sound and went still, his eyes wide with surprise. The human's plasma rifle swung toward Kira's head. She tried to move, but her body would not respond anymore. She had nothing left. This was it. She could not dodge, could not block, could not do anything but watch death coming. Then Nathan was suddenly there, appearing from inside the facility. He was swinging a metal pipe he must have grabbed from his equipment storage. The improvised weapon connected with the human assassin's helmet with a loud metallic crack that echoed through the entrance. The assassin staggered, his aim thrown off. His shot went wide, missing Kira by inches. Kira grabbed her fallen plasma blade with her good hand. Using the last tiny bit of strength in her body, she lunged forward and drove the blade into the human's chest. He collapsed without a sound. Silence fell over the entrance area. Complete and absolute silence except for the sound of Kira's ragged breathing. 5 bodies lay scattered around the entrance. All the assassins were down, dead or incapacitated. But Kira was bleeding heavily from multiple wounds. Her left arm was completely useless. Her ribs were broken. She could feel herself going into shock. Nathan stood there holding the pipe, looking absolutely shocked at what he had just done. His hands were shaking. He had probably never hurt anyone in his entire life before this moment. Data transmitted, Nathan said quietly, his voice sounding far away to Kira's ears. It is done. The cure research is out there now, uploaded to servers across multiple star systems. Even if they kill us both right here, someone else can finish the work. The children can still be saved. Kira tried to stand up, tried to tell Nathan they needed to leave before more assassins came. But her legs completely gave out. She slumped against the wall, breathing hard, feeling consciousness starting to slip away. Nathan dropped the pipe and rushed over to her. He knelt down beside her, his hands immediately going to her wounds, checking them with professional efficiency despite the shock clearly written on his face. "You saved my life," Nathan said, his voice filled with wonder and confusion. "After being sent here specifically to kill me, you just saved my life. Fought 5 trained assassins to protect me.
Why?
Why would you do that?" Kira looked up at him through the pain and exhaustion, at his kind eyes that still showed genuine concern for her even after learning she was an assassin, at the face of the man she had been sent to murder, but could not. "Because," Kira said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "somewhere along the way during these past few weeks, I stopped being just an assassin. I started being something else. Something better." "What?" Nathan asked gently. "Someone who cares," Kira whispered. Then darkness took her, and she knew nothing more.